the topic of today's talk is GraphQL and DevOps made easy. And one of the things that we've noticed with a lot of developers is, getting a project started with GraphQL can be a little bit tricky. GraphQL, for those that are unfamiliar, was developed by Facebook. Mostly everyone in this chat is going to know about it since, we're at a meetup for GraphQL. But it solves large enterprise. Oh, we got a chat. It's you, Bill. Feel free to put any comments or questions here. Yeah, put them in there and then I'll answer at the end. But so yeah, just a small history about GraphQL, developed at Facebook. It's super good for enterprise settings, but getting started with it can be a little bit cumbersome. And for small, startups and just startups in general, it can be kind of ridiculous. And so small personal story is I was working at a startup here in Miami and we started using GraphQL and I had no idea why. Like, it was so complicated to get it up and running. We were using Prisma with it. We were integrating all these services and we had a giant schema and we had no users and it was just ridiculous. And so one weekend, me and another engineer, we just completely rebuilt everything just using REST, and it worked and it was a lot easier to scale. And so GraphQL can be a little bit tricky to get up and running, but GraphQL is great in a lot of different things. And one of the things that we've noticed is what we want to do is make GraphQL easier and allow medium-sized companies to blossom and use GraphQL and to be able to get all the benefits that it offers. And so what we've developed is WunderGraph. WunderGraph allows you to connect your data sources, your APIs, all types of services into a unified graph. And then you can query and stitch them together using GraphQL or TypeScript and create great experiences. And this is kind of just a little diagram that kind of shows the WunderGraph way. So, you have databases, identity management, REST APIs, GraphQL APIs. You introspect all those into a GraphQL schema. You combine it into your WunderGraph server. And then out of the box, WunderGraph comes with authentication and authorization. And then from there, you can put it to your client applications, your web, iOS, and Android. And one thing that we've seen is, or one thing that we know is WunderGraph is open source. So anyone can get up and running right now. You just head here to GitHub and click it and sign up and start using it. And it's a pretty active community. We also have a huge Discord community and people just asking questions and building with it. But a user a while ago was like, the WunderGraph is super cool. The only thing is deploying it on AWS or deploying an API can take forever because, I have to, talk to my front-end team and I need to talk to my DevOps team. And so this is where WunderGraph Cloud came to existence. So WunderGraph Cloud takes the experience of building APIs and takes the experience that you would need to talk to your DevOps engineer to deploy an API, and it meshes it in one. So it allows your front end, your back end, and your DevOps engineers to use one platform to develop and build APIs. And so today, what I wanted to do was just do a small demo to kind of show you guys how that flow works and just how easy it is to, add in a new API into a project, deploy it to my front end, write a different change, switch out the endpoint that's exposed on the front end, and just kind of go over the high level features. And so when you sign in, and you will notice that it says beta appears. So it's currently in beta. It's leaving beta at the end of this month. And so then it'll be GA, but right now it's free to use. And when you start a new project, you just go to new project and you'll see that you can import any existing repositories or you can import from your organization. So you'll see I have WunderGraph here. See, we have a comment. Oh, zoom in on the browser. So let me try that.
Yeah, so you have ultra wide screen showing the demo on the right, and the browser that you're talking to is half of the screen, right? So I was wondering whether you can just bump up one of them.
How does that look? Let me just do it like this then, and I'll shift between them. Does that look better?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll just shift between them then. So WunderGraph Cloud, you can import your repositories here from GitHub. Everything makes that CI/CD with GitHub, and then it comes out of the box with templates. So Next.js, React Query, Vite, Remix. We also just added Astro, Vue, and Svelte. And I think I'm blanking on one other one. And it's very easy to get a project up and running. So for this one, I'll call it, Bill, GraphQL, demo, create. And WunderGraph under the hood, WunderGraph Cloud is built on fly.io. So this is what we use for our infrastructure, which allows rapid deployment. And so for the regions, you have multi-region deployment. New York, Los Angeles, Frankfurt, India, Japan, Australia. I'm in Miami, so I'm going to choose New York. And I'm going to show you while this is deploying an already existing project that I made prior to this. So you'll see this project starting. It can take a couple minutes. We also have metrics to show you and logs, so that way you can debug if anything breaks. And you also have deployment IDs that you can share with the team via Discord or anything, since it is in beta. And so we'll go over to this one, which is Next.js GraphQL. And so when you click this, this is what we call is a Wunder node. That is our GraphQL server, or our WunderGraph server. And so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the features. And so this is up and running. And if I actually head to Vercel, I'm going to show you guys my front end. And so this is my front end, and it's using WunderGraph to make a data source accessible through JSON RPC to my Next.js application. So now I'm going to switch over to my code and just kind of highlight the what's happening on the code. Shift over. Cool. And so every new project comes with a .WunderGraph folder, and you'll see how we treat APIs as dependencies. And so here, this is the project that you see deployed on Vercel and WunderGraph Cloud, is that I'm taking in a SpaceX API, and then I wrote an operation, which is just simply, data or a mutation that you want to run on that API. So for example, I want to write a query that gives me the name of the active SpaceX Dragons from the SpaceX API, or SpaceX rocket ships from the SpaceX API. And so then what I'm doing from there is I wrote that operation. And here in my index, all I'm doing is taking Dragons and putting it in through my front end. And so that's what's happening right here. And so what I wanted to show you was how easy it is to build APIs, add APIs, and write operations. And so close that one. Let's head back over to Cloud. And you'll see, if you're familiar with Vercel, that the flow is similar to how Vercel is. So you have a deployments tab where you can see all your deployments. You have an operations tab. So operations are just endpoints of your API. So here we have the different types. We have authentication, if you've added authentication, the health of your endpoints. We have, to copy that URL. So we'll see Dragons here. And we can go and actually see it live. And if I head over to here and I click on health, I can also get detailed analytics on that endpoint. So you'll see here, Miami, and that was the one I just hit. And so if I go here to my application and I hit refresh a couple times and then head back over, let's give that a sec, last hour, and you'll see that the metrics have gone up. And so this is real time, they're connected, and the analytics allow you to debug any errors on the endpoints, just see the health of your endpoints from your API. And we also offer an entire overview of the API in general. So you can see the request, you can see the latency, you can see any errors that arise. And then one of the things I wanted to really show off was the Postman collection. So you just built an API, you want to share it with your team. What are the operations that you have? What are the mutations? What are the subscriptions? Whatever. What you could do is you could just download it. And you can go to Postman. And Derek, I might have to just split it real quick, just so that way I can set it up. So let me close these, just show you how they look. I was messing around with an e-commerce or with Stripe's API today. And so you would do import and just drag in your Postman collection and import that. And so now let me make that full screen so you guys can see. And so now I just imported that API and it has everything in there, so it's easy to share. So for example, Dragons, and let's send a request. And you'll see that works. You can also see different types that we have that are written in TypeScript. And so sharing your API definition is really easy. It's just one click with here. And you can also see authentication, the health, and you can also copy the URL and make it easy. And so now what I wanted to do is I want to head back over to the code, and I want to show you how easy and quick it is to add in a new API, write in a new operation, and display it onto my front end. And so does anybody watch Rick and Morty here, or at least know what it is? I guarantee you guys know what it is. But for those who aren't familiar, so Rick and Morty has a cool GraphQL API that you can use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a new, or I'm going to add in a new API into WunderGraph. So Rick and Morty. And these are just some of the data sources you can introspect. So Apollo Federation, GraphQL, MongoDB, MySQL, OpenAPI, PlanetScale, Postgres. We are also adding Neon, which is serverless Postgres, Prisma, SQLi, and SQL Server. For this one, I'm going to use GraphQL. And if you hear my dog barking in the back, I'm sorry about that. API namespace, Rick and Morty. And the reason we API namespace, so in a virtual graph, that there are no collisions. And so it helps when you do cross API joins. So you can combine APIs together into one API if you wanted to. URL. All right, cool. So Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty. And our mantra is that we try to treat APIs as dependencies. And so let me actually start this. I just realized it's not running. So it's probably going to open up the local host. Yep. Give that a sec. So that's exactly what we see on our Vercel app. And so now we want to head over to here and we want to write a new operation. And we're going to call it episodes.graphql. And I'm just going to copy this over because I'm a little bit lazy and just tweak it. And so here we want the API namespace, Rick and Morty. And episodes, we're going to call this query episodes. And you'll see that auto completion. So WunderGraph supports auto completion. It kind of tells your IDE how to make the changes. And if you use Copilot, it's kind of funny. Copilot learns and teaches you how to use WunderGraph even better. Info, and let's double check to make sure it's info and count. Okay, so we're going to query the Rick and Morty API so we can get the count of the number of episodes they have in that TV show and count. Okay, cool. So now we just added a new API. And we're going to double check that it's working by heading over to our Wunder node, but our local Wunder node. So local host 9991 operation and episodes. So it's not available. Let me see why. Oh, maybe it's because I didn't save this. Yeah, that makes sense. Give that a sec. Okay, cool. So now it's working. So now that it's working locally, what I want to do is I want to change what my front end shows. My front end right now is showing this, the result of my dragons operation, but I want to change it real time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to pages here, and I'm going to use query to get that operation out. So const episodes equals use query. Operation name. You'll see episodes pops up. That's the auto completion that I was talking about. And so now I'm going to pipe that onto my front end. So this is the result of your episodes operation. And you'll see here, it's already showing it, which is pretty cool. So now, okay, it looks all good. Let's head over to localhost. And you'll see localhost says this is the result of your episodes operation, and it's displaying that data. And so what we're going to do now, let me just move this zoomed in window. I'm going to close that. What we're going to do now is start the CI/CD of deploying to production this new API that I added to my application and the change that I made to my front end. So what I'm going to do, add Rick and Morty data source, commit that, and merge. And you'll see, while that's merging, I'm going to head over to cloud and go to deployments, and it should trigger a deployment. When it triggers a deployment on here, it's also connected to Vercel. And to integrate with Vercel, you would just head over to here to integrations and connect with Vercel. And we also support custom domains. So you can add in your custom domains so you don't have to see the Wunder node, which has cloud.wundergraph, your env variables for your databases, as well as API keys, Git, and then this is just the general stuff. So you'll see here, this triggered a deployment. And if I head over to Vercel, I have Vercel open Vercel. It also triggered a deployment over here. And so you see it's building here. And so now what you'll see is we're just added in a new data source. We just wrote an operation. We're now displaying that endpoint operation, which is just a query for the Rick and Morty API on the front end. And then now what we're going to do is make a change to the backend, and in real time, it's going to update our front end as well. And so that's kind of like that mesh that I was talking about, merging your front end, your back end, and DevOps all in one. And so now, we're trying to improve development speed. We're just trying to improve just how fast a developer can make changes without breaking anything. And one of the important things is the GraphQL that's being used here is under the hood. This is being exposed as JSON RPC. And so let's give that a refresh. So it's not ready yet. I think it's because Vercel is not ready. Let's see, Cloud. So Cloud's ready, 1 minute, 22 seconds. So now if I refresh, it should display it. Oh, yeah, I think I know why. The new endpoint, boom. And so now you can see that it's displayed here on my front end, which is live. So if I send this to you guys should be able to see it. But yeah, so that's WunderGraph. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to take them now. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you guys when you guys ask questions. But it's in free beta. Go ahead, try it out. It's super easy to get started. We offer different types of examples, and you'll see that I sent up another deployment here, which was this one. And deployments are pretty fast to get a project up and running. So between 2 to 3 minutes. And for the docs, the best examples that we have are here. So we have tutorials and examples that you can get started with, or you can just do full-blown guides that kind of show you everything. So auto completion, deploying, how to expose a GraphQL API if you want to, type safe API integrations, whole bunch of other stuff. And the most popular use cases that we run into are creating API gateways, creating API management with that virtual graph, API composition and integration, backend for front ends, and then generating SDKs for all of your APIs. And so that's WunderGraph. And if you guys want to try it out, you just head to cloud.wundergraph.com. But I'm already signed in, so it's going to link me there.